they're the ones who are now in these elite positions in society to put forward this view that some things are just not up for debate. And in fact, that phrase, not up for debate, is a common talking point among the far left to say, no, transgender identity, abortion, LGBTQ, we're not debating this. It's just not up for debate. Here's an article in the Guttmacher Institute, the former researcher on Planned Parenthood, not up for debate. LGBTQ people need and deserve tailored sexual and reproductive health care. Another one from SOAS, University of London, trans lives should not be up for debate. They'll say, we're not going to debate this because there is no debate. It's the most clever way to win a debate by saying this, that there is no debate, and I'm right. It's an amazing way to go about it. Or to not just say there is no debate, but when you try to present your view, to shout it down and to use violence if necessary. This was just recently here. This video was taken March 4th, beginning of March 2022, at the University of North Texas, right near where I live, where Jeff Younger, he was giving a presentation on transgender issues, dealing with the fact that his wife wants to transition his son, I believe was the situation. And he opposed that. And this is harmful to children. And he goes to the campus to express his view, and instead a mob shows up to shout him down. Here's the end of that exchange. And that's where it goes. Don't you record my friend. Excuse me, you're crashing a public event. I've been at pro-life demonstrations where we did this on campus, and the pro-choice protesters would jump in front of our cameras and say, I don't give you permission to film me. It's so funny, but there's where it goes. They say this person is me. No, it's a she. I'm not going to say that.
Secure the hard point.
Flash up! I'm not the enemy here. Smoking max!
Enemy UAV online.
Grenade, move! Throwing flash! Stand in on it! Redeployment zone set! Flash up! Took a shot!
Hard point compromised. Secure the and confirming next hard point. Stand up. We've lost the lead.
The difference between engaging creatively
Flash up!
they didn't understand the word they were saying. It sounded like this. They didn't understand that it's they called them barbarians. They say there's uneducated in what they were saying. Uncivilized educated people called them lions. Oh, they didn't.
Good time! Aim for the enemy! Dust it out!
To turn into we disagree. Let's see who can yell and scream the loudest, spit the most, and slut the hardest. That's going backwards in discourse. 5,000 play in public discourse, but that's they can't do it because if you just went there and had a debate about this, it would be with that wall. I wanted to check out my video on my channel here about that wall. It's still the other side where it's still because the other side can only win when it bullies to get to
Hard point relocated. Secure the target area. Friendly FA inbound. Enemies inside the perimeter.
Flash up! Throwing flash! Flash out!
Enemy spotted. Friendly
I think it's private college. And there were students there to protest. Thankfully, it did not happen.
Target area updated. Move
Drop
to the
point
hard
set.
So
point.
it was important.
Good time to
Watch
get
out,
They had
thermite!
this there. And there were people at the university in the room saying that I made them unsafe. Even though it was a mob there, they were the mob campsite. The group, the there. Students who want to protect this. It's also the university administrators who encourage this inaction for this kind of behavior, and also for university policies that allow this infantile behavior to prevent
I'm not the enemy here.
Their views known. The universities are
Flash out!
there's a great video on the Alliance Defending Freedom YouTube channel, ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom, a great nonprofit organization providing life groups. There's a video talking about college discrimination against conservative speakers. And Shapiro talking about experience what they tell.
They had some students saw flyers when in places like CSULA allow someone to speak whose views they find offensive. So they just throw down flyers.
I don't forget.
Others threatened violence if the speech went forward. We certainly went so far as challenging the student organizers.
The professor is handling it's like he's shorter than everybody
Redeployment
else.
zone set.
That's well done.
For speech, the school administrators, and also the school as police, whose job is providing security for speeches, YAF would have to pay an additional security fee because they have views they deem controversial. The university had guidelines and left its elected officials to decide who had to pay the fee based on viewpoint, a practice the U.S. Supreme Court
I don't forget.
We did all the same thing, but I personally might have just gone wrong. There was a life exhibit on campus and set it up. Our student group, the university told us so that we paid additional fee to hire those students. And and students for life sued over that. Because it's easy to say, if the school said no conservative speakers are allowed. If it's a public university, you're a good First Amendment violation. Right? That's the same. But when they try to do it as an escape, say, well, let everybody speak. You just have to, you're so controversial, you have to pay for security. But the problem is that it's not like that if a Black Lives Matter speaker who's really controversial comes to campus, and even if they know that they invited to come speak, and they know there could be riots and things like that, the university will absorb the cost themselves of the extra security. They only ask conservative groups and Christian groups to absorb the cost and pay the security themselves. Extra security they think is needed. Then it's huge. I have seen that before. And also, yeah, Young Americans for Freedom, that was the group that invited me to a college in New Jersey, where I talked about that episode.
I don't forget.
When you have objectives, President Wilson including that he was canceling the speech, but would be open to a future event that would be more inclusive, that would feature speakers. In other words, on the campus of CSULA, which is a publicly funded university, school officials believed that they could cancel students' free speech rights just because they didn't like their views. This not only deprives speakers of their constitutional rights, it deprives individuals on campus, regardless of their political views, of the chance to learn and their ideas.
Forward, I think sued the university and the university and Charlie makes a good point about why this is. Let's see if I can.
Violating students' rights if only to back down after being challenged. The hard truth is that on many campuses, no one fights back, and students lose their rights.
I'm not the enemy here.
The lesson is that if Americans want to keep their rights, they need to fight for them and never take them for granted.
And so including the right to debate, especially on a public university. So we need to be able to do that. Public dialogue. Like, for example, when Sanjay Gupta was on Joe talking about COVID, talking about the CNN, I thought that was just absolutely that we don't have people on CNN talking about them just like, in a long discussion, it's just here's your 20-second soundbite, that's the long show. When you force people to sit down and hear want to see which views have more merit. And that's something that we absolutely need more of. But I do want to caution that some people who agree with us on these issues aren't in favor of debate publicly. And I find that to be unfortunate. I've been in situations where Catholic campuses, the students wanted me to come do a debate. And I remember a priest at the Newman Center there said, I'm not sponsoring any debate. I'm not taking the risk that students will lose their faith over seeing a debate. And I said, well, you're not going to take the risk they're going to lose their faith seeing a debate an atheist, but you're okay with them just going to campus and getting that same message in a classroom where it's not going to be challenged. So that's one thing I've heard that we need to move away from, that concern that it's not up for debate. It's not just more left, people on the left that has that attitude. This is an article recently by Alexandra DeSanctis at National Review called Why I Debate Abortion. And she was debating Jill Filipovic, who is a pro-choice feminist blogger, on the issue of abortion. And what's interesting, two things are interesting. One, she said that when she went to talk about debating the issue, she noticed that people even on her side were opposed to her doing this. She writes, when I shared a link to the event live stream on Twitter shortly before the debate, I was reminded once again that free speech opponents aren't isolated to Jill's side of the aisle. There are plenty on my side too. By the way, this is an abortion debate hosted at University of Notre Dame. So it says, I got replies saying that abortion should not even be up for debate at a Catholic university, and that Notre Dame was violating its Catholic mission by hosting the event. These people are telling me the same thing that Jill's allies say to her. Both she and I are wrong. They say to grant one another the courtesy of our presence for a conversation, because each of our positions is supposedly too correct even to debate. If we believe that, we're doomed. And that's true. But what's interesting here at Notre Dame, I would say, no, I want to do an abortion debate at Notre Dame, because I bet many, if not most of the students at Notre Dame do not hold to the pro-life position that abortion is intrinsically evil and should be illegal. I bet most of them don't hold that view, or many don't. So why wouldn't I want them to be exposed to this on their campus? What's interesting is in Jill Filipovic, this pro-choice feminist, she wrote an article defending, because she gets a lot of people who say, not up for debate. Abortion, we're not going to debate it. You don't debate human rights. It's a basic human right. And so she wrote this article in defense of debate before doing it, I think shortly thereafter. So here's what she writes about why she does debates. Now, I don't agree with everything. I don't think that certain issues should not be up for debate. But the reason she goes and does public debates resonates with me deeply, even though we're very divided on these issues. She writes, colleges are also places where the seeds of lifelong change are planted. When I debate issues I don't believe should be up for debate, I'm not doing it because I think I'm going to convince the audience that I'm right. I'm doing it because there may be a few people listening who haven't thought about it in quite that way before, and who may not change their mind.
Mind you, that is actually the original purpose of college, is to have these conversations. That's the original purpose.
At the minute in a college auditorium, but for whom a real back and forth may be one in a long list of small moments that eventually produce a bigger shift. I'm doing it because there will probably be a bunch of people in the audience who agree with me, but may not always know how to articulate why. I'm doing it because I think it's good practice for me to think through, be challenged on, and defend my most deeply held beliefs. I'm doing it because there will definitely be many people in the audience, potentially a majority, who think I'm flat out wrong. And while I don't believe I will convince them to embrace abortion rights, I guess my position would be convince them to be pro-life. And this is me at a secular university. I don't think I'm going to get everybody in the audience, or even the majority to agree with me right there. But, she goes on, I do hope I can push them to think about why their own positions may be hypocritical. Maybe I can get them to dig a little deeper into why they believe what.
You've won that round. Get ready for the next one.
It's funny when people who are very divided on important issues find agreement. Finally, so I'm going to do this debate at Emory against Nathan Novus on abortion. Dr. Novus is really one of the best pro-choice philosophers out there.
Search and destroy.
But it's interesting, the pro-choice group didn't want to co-sponsor it.
Watch the objective.
Did not want to moderate
Set up
it.
security.
Nobody wanted to take it. And Nathan is super frustrated with that, and he's even frustrated because he agrees with these people on abortion many times, but they disagree with him about the importance of debating it. So he has a good article about that on his blog, right? The title is abortion up for debate? Clearly it is. That's why ethical literacy.
Moving this way.
declare that abortion is not up for debate. Saying this is absurd. Nathan Oaks is pro-choice. Clearly, abortion is up for debate. What do people think is going on? Maybe it should not be up for debate, but it is. Again, what do people think is going on? So why is abortion up for debate? Why shouldn't it be? Abortion is up for debate because too few people know why it should not be up for debate. Too few people understand why abortion is just not abolished. And so he goes on, and what's interesting here is he talks about how people lack critical reasoning skills. But he said somewhere else that pro-lifers are really good at doing educational training.
Blend the charges and demolish
teach
the
people how to
objectives.
talk about abortion. And pro-choicers really, really like advice. So he's encouraging them, don't fall behind. You got to win hearts and minds as well.
Flanking here.
That's what we do. And that's why I think debate is so important. The far left people, their ideas don't stand up to debate. I believe that the traditional views, the dignity of life, the nature and purposes of humanity, these things can't stand up to reason. In a fair, we need more of that. That's a good society. The far left don't like it. Say, no, we should get together. Isaiah 19 makes us let us reason together. So that's what I feel. I will be able to encourage others to do that as well.
1 minute remaining.
Look no further than busy.com. Right now, we'll complete your LLC file.
So there's been a lot of news recently about the bishops drafting a document about the Eucharist and receiving the Eucharist, which normally is not going to make the news. Except the media is hoping, frankly.
Hold on, before I get this, I do want to make my video.
We lost that round. Prepare for the next one. Search and destroy. Place the charge. Detonate the target.
Those stupid tier makers.
There it is, Hunt. Moving this way. You've got the bomb.
Oh, I saw him.
Final minute.
They always make these difficult.
30 seconds remain.
Too.
Seconds remaining. We're planting at Bravo.
Alright guys, this is another video, not exactly the best background, but I wanted to make a video on this, and I've seen this question been answered many times. I wanted to take my stab at it, playing Mw3 in the background right now. But part of this video is going to be, what if King Kai taught Goku the instant transmission? Now, in the manga and in Dragon Ball Z Kai, you know, there's this line does not appear, but in the Funimation dub, Dragon Ball Z from the 90s, King Kai said he knew instant transmission. He was joking, right? But of course, that did not exist in the manga, and it didn't exist, like I said, in the Kai dub of Dragon Ball Z, or in the original Japanese dub either. So let's take this condition, let's add it, and let's just say he did know instant transmission. So it's very simple. But how would the story go? So if King Kai taught Goku instant transmission, he would obviously use it to teleport to Earth instead of, traveling through Snake Away. And if this were to happen, he would obviously be there on time, and he would have helped defeat, Vegeta and Nappa. Right? Obviously. Now, it is entirely possible. I want to branch this out into two different places, two different parts. It is entirely possible for there to be a Z fighter to die, and then a Z fighter not to die. So let's talk about the case where a Z fighter does not die. Nobody dies. If Goku defeats Nappa and Vegeta, right, and nobody dies, there's almost no question that if all the Z fighters were there, they would kill Vegeta, right? Vegeta would not be there. He would kill him, and there would be no reason to go to Namek because everybody's still alive, obviously. So, in that case, right? I mean, look, if Piccolo is there alone with all the other Z fighters, yeah, they're gonna die. Vegeta's gonna die. They're gonna kill Nappa. So there's no reason for them to go to Namek, right? In this case, like I said. So in this scenario, the androids show up. Well, Goku dies from the heart virus, and the androids show up, and then everybody dies. So in this case, if Goku knew instant transmission in this case, the series ends basically the same way it did originally. Well, actually, no, it wouldn't. It's actually worse, right? Because Vegeta was killed, right? Trunks wouldn't exist, right? Because Vegeta obviously wouldn't have died with Bulma. So, instead, what we saw originally, instead of Trunks going back in time, Gohan would have went back in time. But here's the problem. There's a huge problem. Because the characters would be significantly weaker than what they are, him going back in time wouldn't really do anything. They would be too weak to stop the androids. Even if he were to save him from the heart virus, what would he do? He isn't a Super Saiyan. He is nowhere near as powerful as he should be, or as he originally was. So even if he did go back in time, Goku would not help him anyways. The only way Gohan would save his future is if, or at least a different future, is if, what I did in my other video about Dragon Ball, right, is if he got the blueprints to Dr. Zero's lab. Maybe he used the Dragon Balls and asked them, where is Dr. Zero's lab located, and he got the blueprints. But then, obviously Cell would show up later on as well. And, Cell would absorb the androids, and then he would have the planet for himself. Right. But, I mean, he actually would know instant transmission, so I guess he could just teleport across the universe. But the problem is, even if Gohan did go back in time, but because Goku is so weak, it wouldn't really matter. So that's the first branch. The first branch of no Z-Fighters dying. Well, everybody dies. Goku dies from the heart virus, Z-Fighters die. Gohan would go back in time. Even though Gohan probably wouldn't survive anyways. Gohan would be significantly weaker. He wouldn't probably survive anyways. So the future is doomed in that case. So let's go to the second option. I think this one is slightly better, but still kind of messed up and dark. Let's say a Z-Fighter died. Let's say it's Piccolo who died. or somebody else like that, right? And they need Piccolo for the Dragon Ball, so they would have a reason to go and to Namek. And let's say Krillin eavesdropped on the conversation. He heard them talk about the Dragon Balls on Namek, like they originally Krillin did, right? So if this were to happen, let's just say Piccolo died. Goku, obviously, right? Let's say they weren't as badly damaged. This is a problem. Goku would not be as badly damaged if he defeated, he would not be as badly damaged from the he wouldn't get the Zenkai boost, obviously, if they were all there. Let's just say that. And because he has instant transmission, right, he wouldn't need the spaceship. He could just teleport there just like that. I mean, we could add in, okay, maybe if Krillin wants to go, maybe if, maybe Tien, maybe. Mind you, originally, the only reason why Krillin and Gohan went was because Goku was injured and recovering. That's the reason why. Right. But because he isn't badly injured, he would probably just use instant transmission to get the Dragon Balls. If he's in trouble, he can just teleport back to Earth. Right. But here's the problem. Goku would be significantly weaker. What his power level after he died, after he came back, was, let's just say it's 9,000 or 8,000 in the manga. Right. And then a 2 times Kaioken put him at 19. It would put him at 18,000. Right. And then 3, and then 4 times 4. You'd have that as well. Right. So, he'd be at 30. He'd be at 36,000. So he would beat Dodoria. He would beat Kui. He would beat Zarbon's. He would beat Zarbon as well. The problem is the Ginyu Force. When the Ginyu Force come in, he would be beaten up by Raccoon and Birder and Jace, and of course Captain Ginyu. And that's not even including Frieza. So if somebody did die, they couldn't get the Dragon Balls. He would not be able to revive Piccolo. So he would either die or he would just teleport back to Earth. Right. So then the problem arises is the same thing would happen. If Goku were to die, then the androids show up again and they would all get killed.
Defend the objectives.
That's why I'm saying it's a dark ending. If Goku knew instant transmission from the beginning, it would actually doom the planet. The series would not go on very much further. I'm trying to think as many ways as possible that they could get out of it, but they really can't. I might have to reconsider this video and maybe make a sequel to it, but I don't see how in any way, if Goku knew instant transmission from the beginning, that he would be able to survive at all. I mean, I think there's a good reason why it wasn't added.
Sniper spotted. Careful, area's hot.
So I think that's it for the video. I can't really add any more. So yeah, maybe I might make another one. But if Goku knew instant transmission, he would get killed in both scenarios. If he went to Namek by himself, I mean, again, he'd go with a few other people. They would be killed. Let's just say, I don't know, it was, who else? Maybe Krillin died. How about that? Let's just say Krillin died. Right?
Sniper, take cover.
If Krillin were to die, then, okay, maybe Piccolo would come with him, but they would still all be weaker, they would still all be decimated by Frieza. The androids would come and kill everybody, including Gohan, because Gohan would be even weaker than what he was. So that's really my video. Wait, what happened?
One minute remaining.
Okay, I made a video and it just ended abruptly, so I have no idea what just happened. So I recorded it on Twitch, so I'll just re-say it again. You can see me in the background. So, streaming Twitch and Call of Duty right now at the same time. What basically was happening is, let's say King Kai knew instant transmission. Now this did not show up. He never said this, and the Kai dub or the Funimation, the Kai dub, the original Japanese dub, were in the manga. This is only in the Funimation dub. So King Kai, there's two scenarios I want to talk about. Goku surviving on time, making it on time, and nobody dying. And the second one is somebody dying, and them going to Namek. So in the first scenario, Goku survives on time, and he defeats Vegeta and Nappa, and nobody dies. There's no reason to go to Namek. Vegeta would be killed with all the characters' influences, especially Piccolo. Piccolo would definitely kill him himself. And there would be, like I said, no reason to go to Namek. Goku would die from the heart virus, and then the androids would show up and everybody would die because they're significantly weaker than what they were. Trunks wouldn't exist, obviously, because Vegeta's dead. And Gohan would probably die as well, because he would be significantly weaker than what he was. Even if he did go back in time, all the Z-Fighters would be significantly weaker, so it wouldn't really matter if time travel existed or not. And then maybe Cell could show up and absorb the androids. So him knowing instant transmission doesn't really do anything. In the first case.
You've got the bomb.
So, in the second case, let's say somebody dies. Let's say it's Krillin or Piccolo who dies. If Krillin dies, obviously they can't revive him back because they already brought him back in the original Dragon Ball. So if Krillin were to die, let's say Piccolo dies, right? Everybody would be significantly weaker than what they already are, right? So Goku with a power level of 9,000 times 4 Kaioken, he would have a power level of 36,000. Mind you, because he wouldn't be as injured from the fight with Vegeta and Nappa, right? He wouldn't have gained a significant Zenkai boost. And also because he has instant transmission, he has no reason to teleport. He has no reason to use a spaceship, so you just teleport there. So, be significantly weaker. I think he would be able to defeat Zarbon, Dodoria, and Kui, but he would lose to the stronger members of the Ginyu Force, such as Jace, Raccoon, Birder, and obviously Captain Ginyu. Of course, just forget about Frieza. He doesn't even get past the Ginyu Force. Goku would indeed die. Then the androids would show up, everybody else would die, and the series is cooked. Bulma would have to go back in time herself, but that's a story for another day. I made this video significantly shorter because I already did it, and apparently it didn't record a video. So, if Goku knew instant transmission, that would doom the series from the beginning.
Okay. Switching sides. Search and destroy. Defend the objectives.
Depends on the type of Judaism.
The round is lost. Focus on the next one.
Ever thought about this? No. Because there are some religions, like for example, the fundamentalist Mormons, they believe in polygamy, and it's illegal. Because the reason why it's very simple. The reason why this is illegal and should be illegal is because any person or group of people can basically make up their own religion. Like, hey, my religion says it's okay to rape people, so you have to make an excuse, you have to make a cutout for me. That's what I'm talking about. Like, so, ow. Because that's what people are going to do. That's what they're going to exploit this system.
Is known, or are they?
1 minute remaining. We lost that round. Prepare for the next one. Switching sides. Search and destroy. Plant the charges and demolish the objectives. Hostile UAV in the area. Hostile water strike near your position. The round is lost. Focus on the next one. Search and destroy. Place the charge. Detonate the target. We lost that round. Prepare for the next one. Switching sides. Search and destroy. Defend the objectives.
Pero si dices que es caro, es
Oh, we're cooked.
Enemy Overwatch Hilo inbound. Enemy UAV active.
At the dock.
Mission failed. Return to base.
Sweden is so advanced.
and destroy. Secure our objectives. Do not let your guard down. You've won that round. Get ready for the next one. Search and destroy. Set up a perimeter around the objectives. Do not let them reach it.
We liberalized our abortion laws starting in the 1970s in America, but yet before the 1970s, and you can cite a Yale study on this, Yale Law School, before the 1970s, women were much happier than they are today. Much happier in absolute terms and relative to men. But you're reading their minds beyond the scientific survey.
Yeah, if we took a study from Chinese people, did you know Chinese people have like abnormally high rates of happiness?
Did you lost that round. Prepare for the next one.
With the government? I wonder why.
Do you think that the statistics coming out of Yale and Columbia are equally reliable? We liberalized our abortion laws.
Search and destroy.
Yeah.
Place the
Well, that is a
charges
good
on the
point.
target and this hostile UAV in the area.
Shouldn't feel confusing. Fine print, guesswork, surprises.
Like, obviously,
You deserve clarity.
obviously, those corrupt those corrupt countries would say that about their country. But Yale, what would Yale have to say about that?
You secured the device. Final minute. We're planting at
Movement,
Bravo.
moving this way.
Device in place. Countdown started.
Oh, come on. Hope you had that one.
Our device was disarmed.
Let me turn off the heat. Oh my
Round is
god.
lost. Focus on the next one.
Should I use a stun thing?
Search and destroy.
So there's been a lot of
Use the
news
charges.
recently
Blast the target.
about the
No
bishops
mistakes.
drafting a document about the Eucharist and receiving the Eucharist, which normally is nothing to do. Except the media
They're
is
planting at
hoping,
Alpha.
frankly, that the document's going to rebuke President Biden.
Bomb planted. Confirmed.
Odds are it won't even mention Biden by name. That's 60 years of Democrats. As and others, they wrote a letter recently that criticized the bishops for being Catholic. One of the signers, Representative Ted Lieu from California, he went on Twitter and said, "Dear USCCB, I'm Catholic and I support contraception, a woman's right to choose,
Enemies defused
treatments
our
for
bomb.
infertility, the right for people
We
to
lost
get a
that round.
divorce,
Prepare for
the
the
right of
next one.
same-sex marriage. Next time I go to church, I dare you to not use it." Alright, first, isn't it weird to brag about being part of a religion, but then deny the religion's core moral teachings? It'd be like saying, I'm vegan, I eat meat, and wear leather shoes. I dare you to revoke my membership with
Do not let your guard down.
people for the ethical treatment of animals. Second, the church is okay with treatments for infertility as long as they don't separate reproduction from
Friendly
marriage.
mosquito deployed.
You can treat the scarring of fallopian tubes, but you can't create embryos from IVF. The church also allows for some rare circumstances, like to protect children. It just doesn't allow remarriage after a civil divorce unless the previous marriage is gone. I know these are minor points, but the point of this whole episode is to not misrepresent what the church teaches, which is what Catholic politicians do. Finally, we dare you in the 6th grade. That's why I put up a tweet of my own, daring the congressman to come on my podcast and explain his views. And he actually responded to me. This is what he said. Are you also going to say Bill Hall should be denied the Eucharist for expanding death penalty executions, or that he should call himself a Catholic? Now, no word yet on if Representative Liu will be on my show, though I'm not holding my breath. So instead, I thought it'd be helpful today to go through the tactics that pro-choice Catholic politicians use to justify their support of the legal killing of small human beings, even though their own religion tells them this is a grave evil. But before we look at these tactics, it's just a reminder to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening on podcasting, review at iTunes or Google Play. If you use the Trendborn podcast, this will keep things great. Alright, now here are the 6 sneaky tactics of pro-choice Catholic politicians. Number 1, they double down on how Catholic they are.
Set up a
So when
perimeter
these
around this.
politicians
Enemy
are
UAV
challenged,
active.
you're Catholic or you're for abortion, and they're challenged, they always talk about how Catholic they are, and they even act kind of offended at the suggestion they're contradicting the church. This happens a lot when I hear people call Catholic Answers Live. They'll say they're Catholic and they're pro-choice. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time a pro-choice Catholic told me on the radio they went to Catholic school their whole life, I could finally afford to send my kids to Catholic school. So when people do this, I'm ardently, sincerely Catholic. It's an
Only
appeal
you
to
remain.
authority,
Finish the
and
mission.
it's an invalid.
The round is lost. Focus
So
on the
here are a
next
few
one.
examples of it with pro-choice Catholic politicians.
I am a devout, practicing Catholic.
Religion defines who I am.
Switching sides.
Choice in general. If, for example, you're a Catholic who accepts the abortion teaching, as I did, and lived by it
Place
for,
the
say,
charges
50
on the
years.
target and
As a
destroy it.
practicing and respectful Catholic,
Hostile
this is
UAV in the
sacred
area.
ground to me when we talk about this. I don't think it should have anything to do with politics.
It's important you're aware of this rhetorical trick, and then point out when the person is being hypocritical in bragging about their Catholic faith while denying one of the Catholic Church's core moral teachings. After all, if they really think the Church is teaching, being Catholic, then we wouldn't be questioning their Catholic identity in the first place. Number 2, I can't impose my views on others. This is the classic pro-choice Catholic politician argument. And it makes sense in a superficial kind of way. My Catholic faith obliges me to be
Won that
pro-life,
round.
but I
Get
can't
ready
make
for the
other
next
people
one.
hold that view by changing the law.
What refuses to take the position that now I am. The whole non-Catholics, non-believers, and even those Catholics who do
There
not
can
accept the
destroy.
abortion, I have to impose a law upon them or attempt to.
Use the charges.
Problem with this
Blast the
argument,
target.
however,
No mistake.
is that banning abortion is not like forcing people to go to Mass on Sunday. Our Catholic faith obliges us to end grave evil that people see no problem committing. Here's Cardinal Renzi making the point better than I can.
To the person who said that I'm against abortion, but then if people want to do it and leave them free, you could say, you are a member of the Senate or the Congress. Personally, I am not in favor of shooting a whole lot of you. But if somebody else wants to shoot you, or all of you in conflict, it's just no choice for them. But personally, I'm not in favor.
That's secure. On to the next.
In favor of giving these millions of children in the womb.
One way around this, though, is to say, look, abortion is murder if you're Catholic, because the church teaches life begins at
Search
conception.
and destroy.
But I can't force other people to believe life begins at
Secure
conception.
our objectives. Do
Here's
not
a
let
clip
your
of
guard
Vice
down.
President Joe Biden making this argument in 2008. So let's go through it and we'll point out its points.
With regard to abortion, I accept my church's position on abortion as we call de fide doctrine.
Friendly
Against
mosquito
conception
deployed.
as the church's judgment. But I refuse to impose on equally devout Christians and Muslims and Jews. I just refuse to impose that on others, like my friend here, the congressman. I do not believe that
Oh my goodness, get up.
we have a right to tell other people that women, they can't control their body. It's a decision between them and their doctor.
We'll get to the question of when life begins soon, but while the church has infallibly taught that direct abortion is always wrong, it hasn't
Final minute.
infallibly defined when life begins. So Biden makes it seem like he's in good standing because he personally believes life begins at conception, but he can't make other people believe that. Well, first, Biden's press secretary, Jen Psaki, was asked recently what the president thinks about the unborn. And so here's her answer.
Does the president believe that a 15-week-old unborn baby is a human being?
Moving this way.
If the president
50 seconds
supports a woman's
remain.
right to choose, he does.
So she doesn't say Biden believes it's a baby or a human being, just he's for abortion. Second, the law always imposes you on life begins.
We lost that round.
Right now, it
Prepare for the next
imposes
one.
that view at birth. So if you think infanticide is okay, maybe your religion teaches it, or you were a fan of Peter Singer. If you think infanticide is okay, the law imposes on you and says, no, you can't kill children after they're born. Third, the church teaches that Catholics have a responsibility to not just be personally uninvolved,
Around the
but
objective.
to make it
Do not let
illegal.
them reach it.
In the Gospel of Life, Pope St. John Paul II said this: civil law must
Enemy
ensure
UAV
that all
active.
members of society enjoy respect for certain fundamental rights which innately belong to the person, rights which every positive law must recognize and guarantee. First and fundamental among these is the inviolable right to life of every innocent human being. I urgently appeal to this court, to all political leaders, not to pass laws which, by disregarding the dignity of the person, undermine the very fabric of society.
It's 11:52 p.m. I just remembered the text from my boyfriend I never answered. I saw it this morning. I even knew what I wanted to say.
Enemy
Then,
moving.
In 2008, Pope Benedict XVI even explained this to Nancy Pelosi in person. Here's an Associated Press story.
According to the Vatican, Pope Benedict told the Democrat from California that she has
1
a
minute
duty to
remaining.
protect life. Pelosi is Catholic, but also supports abortion rights. The Vatican said the Pope
Won
talked
that
to her
round.
about, quote,
Get ready
the
for the next
dignity
one.
of human life from conception to natural death. And it says she should use her position to create a just system of laws capable of protecting human life at all stages of its development.
Fourth, the question of when life begins is not a
Search and
religious issue.
destroy.
A Catholic supporting laws that ban abortion
Secure
is
our
not
objective.
imposing
Do not
his
let your
religion on
guard down.
anybody any more than a Catholic who supports laws against shoplifting imposes the Second Amendment. They're principles of reason primarily, not religion. In fact, in 2020, Pope Francis said in a private letter, the issue of abortion is not essentially religious. It is a human problem prior to any religious option. The abortion issue must be addressed scientifically. And the Pope even underlined the word scientifically in his letter. Finally, the I can't impose my view argument is bogus. Because people like President Biden impose their moral
Flanking
views
here.
on other issues. They support laws addressing climate change that impose requirements on people
Mission failed.
who disagree about
Return to
climate
base.
change. Or they support abolishing the death penalty, even though other people even made this very point in 2008 with then Vice President Biden.
I don't see how a person can separate their public life from their private life or from their faith. Our faith informs us in everything we do. My faith informs me about how to take care of the vulnerable, of how to make sure that people have a chance in life. Now, do you want to ask basically why I'm pro-life?
I got cooked.
It's not simply because of my Catholic faith. That's a factor, of course. It's also because of reason and science.
Number 3 is complaining about alleged double standards. So on Twitter, Representative Lou said, well, if you're going to get mad at me, what about people like William Barr, who are Catholic and support the death penalty? All right, well, first, voting for legal abortion. I agree, it's not the only sin that would justify withholding communion from a politician or a public figure. Here's what Bishop Rhodes of Fort Wayne said about other issues that impact faithfulness.
And even though the city has been about abortion relations, I mean, I think we would also look at, as I thought, was involved in human trafficking and the scandal that would be created if someone publicly was involved in that, or was a white supremacist group or whatever, going up and receiving Holy Communion. Obviously, that would be problematic.
So there are many instances where someone could be an obstinate, manifest grave sin and justify withholding communion from that person because of it. But we need to recognize that this is a diversionary tactic. We should stay focused on the Catholic politician who advocates for abortion. And sometimes it's just here to just give a hypothetical. You could do this even if you don't personally agree with the hypothetical. So with someone like Representative Lou, for example, I asked him on Twitter, I said, all right, well, if the church formally withholds communion from abortion and death penalty enablers, would you submit to its teaching? So now I'm putting it back to him. There's no answer. Now, I know the death penalty is controversial, but it's important to bring up because every politician that supports legal abortion, they also oppose the death penalty. So you can ask them, yes or no, does your Catholic faith require you to protect prisoners from the threat of capital punishment? Does your Catholic faith require you to do that? Yes or no? If they say yes, my faith requires me to do that, you can ask, why doesn't your faith require you to protect the unborn from abortion? Or do you only oppose the parts of your Catholic faith that align with your political ideology? Or they might say no. They might say, look, I'm against the death penalty, not because I'm Catholic, but because it's the right thing to do. I'm passing these laws because we ought to protect prisoners and others from capital punishment.
Is that Homelander?
You can say, okay, then we can leave aside being Catholic then. If you agree that just human decency demands we protect criminals from the death penalty, if you, Mr. Pro-Choice Catholic politician, or Mrs., believe that, protect criminals from the death penalty, shouldn't we also, human decency, require that we protect children from abortion? Number 4, focus on installment instead of abortion.
This is the taking of life. That's the church's position. It wasn't always. It wasn't St. Ambrose's.
That's obvious.
Move in and detonate the target.
On a 2008 episode of Meet the Press,
Obviously not true.
Asked Nancy Pelosi about when life begins.
Do you own your own home in Pennsylvania? And are
Not true. Ow. Ow.
Here was
Your question of when life begins is above his pay grade, whether you're looking at it. If he were to come to you and say, help me out here, Madam Speaker, when does life begin? What would you tell him?
I would say that as an ardent practicing Catholic, this is an issue that I have studied for a long time. And what I know is over the centuries, the doctors of the church have not been able to make that definition. And Senator Augustine said at 3 months. We don't know. The point is that it shouldn't have impact on a woman's right to choose. And so I don't think anyone can tell you when life begins. Human life begins. As I say, Catholic Church for centuries has been discussing this. And there are those who've decided that
very strongly
say that. And this is what, maybe 50 years or something like that. So again, over the history of the church, this is an issue of controversy.
You know, a lot of people say pro-lifers want to just impose their religion on people, but it's only pro-choice people who talk about the soul. You ever notice that? Like, pro-lifers just say it's a human being, don't kill him when it comes to abortion. Pro-choice people bring up the soul to confuse the issue. You can't empirically detect a soul. So it creates these uncertainties related to abortion and the standard you use for it. That's why the church's teaching on abortion is not based on the theistic soul. In 1974, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, they said this in their Declaration on Pure Abortion. Respect for human life from the time that the process of generation begins, from the time that the ovum is fertilized. A life is begun which is neither that nor of the mother.
Moving.
It is rather the life of a new human being with his own. It would never be made human if it were not human already. To this perpetual evidence, perfectly independent of the discussions on the moment of animation for the soul, modern genetic science brings valuable confirmation. It has demonstrated that from the first instant, there is established the program of what this living being will be: a man. This individual man with his characteristic aspects already well determined. Right from fertilization has begun the adventure of human. If you want more evidence life begins at conception, definitely check out my video, Human Life Begins at Conception. So early Christians agreed that it was a grave evil to kill the developing human life in the womb, regardless of whether or not God formed it with a soul. St. Basil the Great actually said this in the 4th century. He said of the punishments related to abortion, he says, with us, there is no nice inquiry as to its being or unborn. Now, today, unlike the saints and doctors of the past, we know that a biological human organism is formed like it has a human genetic code. This makes an unborn child a developing human being whose life begins at conception, and therefore deserves respect and protection under the law. Now, it's true that the saints and the church fathers and the doctors of the church, there's disagreement among them about when the soul enters the body. Part of that is because they didn't have the biological knowledge that we have today. They didn't know about things like DNA. So they followed Aristotle's theory that you had a vegetative soul and body, and an animal soul and body, and finally a body capable of receiving a rational soul.
1 minute remaining.
And now we know about DNA. We know that from the moment of conception, there's an individual human organism that is growing and developing. I mean, sperm and egg weren't even discovered until after the Middle Ages. So that's part of it. The other part is that something that's been given to us in the deposit of faith. So theologians disagree about that, but I would say that the most sensible conclusion is that because the soul is the principle of life, it's what makes a body animated and alive, corpse, that the soul would exist in the body when the body first exists. And so we have to keep the body after successful fertilization, because that's when you have, like I said, a complete So there's dispute about that, but the church's teaching, as I said before, is not based on ensoulment. It's based on the fact that we know this is a human being, we know that it violates the fifth commandment to directly kill human beings, and this is something the church has always taught. For example, the church's universal teaching of abortion. Since the 1st century, the church has evil in every procured abortion. This teaching has not changed and remains unchanged. Direct abortion, that is to say, abortion willed either as an end or a means, is gravely contrary to the moral
RTB at this time.
2271. So science shows the unborn are human beings, and reason and revelation inform us that human beings ought to be protected under the law. It follows that everybody, especially Catholic politicians, should work to outlaw abortion. Number 5, God gave us free will. One argument I hear a lot from pro-choice Christians, Catholic Christians, is that God gave us free will. So that means you can't outlaw abortion.
Search and destroy.
I also believe in God-given free will.
This delusion.
Therefore, I think yes for gay rights. Please. There's a function.
But it is also true that God has given us, each of us, free will and responsibility to answer for our actions.
But by that logic, we shouldn't have laws
Friendly
that
cruiser.
because God gave us free will to do those bad things. Yeah, we have free will. But that only means we can choose. And because we can choose, that means we can be held responsible for our actions. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, St. Paul even says, we are of good courage. We would rather be away from
Won that round. Get
than
ready for the next one.
So whether we are at home or away, we make it our aim to please him. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive good or evil according to what he has done in the body. And finally, number 6, abusing the rights of conscience.
There's always total freedom of conscience.
Set up
You're free to-
security
as a
around
matter
the
of fact,
objective.
our religion teaches you have to follow your conscience.
So in that letter that 60 Catholic Democrats signed, we seek the Church's guidance and assistance, but believe also in the primacy of conscience. In recognizing the Church's role in providing moral leadership, we acknowledge and accept the tension that comes with being in disagreement with the Church in some areas. This is a common argument. Well, the Church says this, my conscience says otherwise. Catholics for choice, put Catholics in quotation marks there, they make the same kind of argument. This is what they say. The teaching on the primacy of conscience means that every individual must follow his or her own conscience and respect the rights of others.
Which is obviously antithetical to Catholicism, Christianity as a whole. Basically, you're superior to God, you know more than God, so you don't actually have to obey God's rules. That's literally the antithesis of Christianity. You're in league with the devil, not God, if you think you're superior.
30 seconds remain. Seconds remaining. The round is lost. Focus on the next one. Search and destroy.
Others to do the same. Right, you need to follow your conscience.
Keep
But
the
your
enemy
conscience
off the
also needs to
objective.
be full. These people are acting like your conscience can never make a mistake. But that can't be right. For example, my conscience tells me to make abortion illegal. No matter
Hostile
what
bomb
anyone
drone
else's
is active.
conscience says.
Hostile Mosquito is online.
Catholics for choice, should I make abortion illegal? My conscience says that I should. If Catholics for choice says I should make abortion illegal, to not follow my conscience and do that, then welcome back to my channel, then they're wrong about that your conscience will never be mistaken. We liberalized our abortion. And the fact of the matter is, people who think abortion needs to be legal, their conscience is mistaken. It's like a compass that is faulty and is not pointing towards true north. So that's why, yes, we must follow our conscience, but we always have the duty to follow our conscience. So the Catechism says, we must always obey the certain judgment of conscience. But it's possible our conscience can make an erroneous judgment, ignorance, or even blindness that's caused by sin.
141.
And politicians who think it's okay to vote for laws that uphold and expand legal dismemberment is simply evidence of how sin can mislead. Even the obvious examples St. Paul talks about this kind of evil in Romans chapter 1, where he writes this. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God, or give thanks to him. But they became futile in their thinking, and their senseless minds were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, listening to this episode. In a future video, in a future episode, I'm going to talk. We liberalized what abortion was.
Search and destroy. Move in and detonate the target.
Exactly, the report comes. Well, here's the thing about the reports, right? In the case, like Rose was saying, the case is that's self-reported data by the people themselves. Whereas in, what's it called? In,
Enemy marked. Move in here.
they tell me we can't kill one guy. But in the case of, like, China and North Korea, yeah, that's reported by the leaders, probably.
The mission's complete. Good work.
Yeah, the North Korea, yeah, because North Korea totally doesn't lie. Yeah, if you actually go to North Korea, right, they're in their country, they preach that they've won every single World Cup.